You see, the curious dance of awareness is that it doesn't promise a simpler life. Instead, it offers a clearer view. And clarity, you see, is not always a gentle awakening. It is like reaching a silent peak, only to look down and truly see for the first time that the clouds you once mistook for solid ground are merely mist, dancing in an endless sky. So many of us prefer to reside in the comfortable dream. We build our homes there. We don't call it a dream, of course. We call it our plan, our faith, our connections, our life's great work. But the one who begins to see starts to notice the shimmering curtain. They begin to feel that what we often call friendship is a silent pact to avoid the great silence together. And this dawning awareness, this first quiet crack in the mirror, is where solitude begins to flow in. And solitude, though it wears the mask of loneliness, is an entirely different current. Loneliness is a kind of thirst for another's presence. Solitude is the discovery of the wellspring within. For you see, when you allow the world to reveal itself as it is, without the colored glass of your beliefs, without the masks of the play, without the echo of applause, you find yourself on a path of your own. Not from a distaste for others, you understand. Not out of pride or distance, but simply because the dance of pretense has lost its rhythm. To awaken from the dream is to find the crowd is still dreaming, for the crowd's very life is the dream itself. It thrives on the ripples of comparison, the echoes of chatter, the constant noise that drowns out the quiet truth. But the one whose eyes have begun to open, the one who has started to see, finds a deeper music in the silence than in all the world's noise. And so, they may sit in quiet observation, while the river of conversation flows on about passing clouds and fleeting dramas, or the shifting shadows of reputation. A gentle smile may be on their lips, but their spirit is drifting in a different cosmos, for they have glimpsed a quiet secret that so much of our talk is simply a way to avoid meeting ourselves in the stillness. And the mind that sees this doesn't resent this game. It simply outgrows it, as a child's hand grows too large for a favorite toy. The awareness outgrows certain diversions. The one who sees begins to find that the comfort of the herd no longer warms because the cost of admission has become clear. The price is the self, the cost of wearing a mask just to be invited to the masquerade. And this, you see, is why the one who walks in clarity is so often seen as a mystery. They will say, he is adrift, or she is a stranger, or they do not join the dance. But there is a deep misunderstanding that the awakened mind can force itself back into the dream once it has seen the light. You cannot unsee truth, nor can you unlearn awareness. Once the curtain of illusion is drawn back, the grand play loses its spell, and so one begins to walk alone, not in the shadow of bitterness, but in the light of awareness. They become explorers of the inner landscape, seeking not the crowd but connection, not mere distraction, but for resonance. And this resonance is a quiet, rare music. To find a soul who truly understands, who can listen to the space between your words without preparing a reply, who speaks from a place of stillness, is one of life's most precious gifts. That is why the thoughtful mind often walks a solitary path, for it cannot settle for noise once it has tasted the sweetness of silence. They do not chase the fleeting echo of validation when they have found the music of understanding within. They prefer the quiet river of their own consciousness to the turbulent sea of collective confusion. And while this path may feel solitary at first, it is, in the end, the most honest way to be. For when you walk in your own company, you finally hear the subtle hum of your own soul. But here we arrive at a wonderful paradox, and it is here that solitude is so often misunderstood. The person of insight is not avoiding people. They are simply seeking what is real, And what is real, you see, is seldom found in the clamor of crowds. It appears in moments of profound stillness, like the moon's reflection appearing only when the lake is perfectly calm. So when you see someone sitting in quiet repose, do not assume they are lonely. They are listening. They are watching the world reveal itself, free from the distortions of need and noise. They have not rejected society. They have simply declined the invitation to be deceived by its frantic dance. Now, when a person enters this state of aloneness, something quite extraordinary begins to unfold. At first, the silence may feel heavy, immense, as if the world has shrunk. But soon you notice this silence is not an absence at all. It is a presence, full of subtle currents, of delicate thoughts drifting like clouds, of the very rhythm of life itself. You begin to see that most people flee from silence because they fear who they might meet there, the stranger they call myself. But the curious mind, upon ceasing to resist, begins to discover that its own inner world is not an enemy. It is a vast and uncharted cosmos, filled with mysteries far deeper than any conversation could ever hope to contain. And so, the journey inward begins. One sits, one watches, and in that quiet watching, one begins to understand that the very essence of connection, of being seen, of gentle warmth, was a current already flowing within him. It was never truly absent. It was merely veiled by the ceaseless hum of the crowd. And so you see, when you dwell in stillness for a time, the line dividing you from the universe begins to dissolve. You begin to sense that the ancient tree, the soft rhythm of the falling rain, the dance of light upon the wall, all of this is a silent dialogue. The universe is speaking, but not in the language of men. The wise one learns to hear the silence. But of course, the game of society has little time for this kind of hearing. It celebrates the clamor, the endless stream of information, the perpetual chatter. We have mistaken the churning of the water for the depth of the ocean. They believe that if you are not in the dance, you are somehow incomplete. Yet the one who is awake to this knows the deepest solitude can be found in a crowded room. And here we arrive at a curious paradox. The deeper the waters of your mind, the fewer there are who can swim in them, not for any lack of cleverness, but because they prefer the safety of the shore. They seek the comfort of the dream, not the brilliant shock of waking up. And the real, you see, is often a bracing experience. And so the person of insight uses fewer words, not from arrogance, but for clarity. They see that words are but poor vessels for truth, and that true knowing arises in the space between them. Such a person would prefer a shared silence with a single kindred spirit to the chatter of 100 distracted minds. In this way, their company becomes smaller, but their sense of the whole expands. They cease the chase for companionship, having realized that so much of what we call friendship is a pact of mutual distraction. Two souls agreeing to help one another look away from themselves. True connection begins when the running stops. When two beings can rest in the quiet together, without the urge to fill it. That is a kind of love. Yet very few arrive here, for the stillness, though beautiful, is a mirror that shatters our illusions. It reveals how much of the self you thought you were was simply a reflection in the eyes of others. And when you let go of the need for that reflection, you become wonderfully unpredictable. You become free, and this freedom is a terrifying spectacle to those who live in the prison of approval. So it is that the awakened person finds their very stillness can unsettle others, not through any intention, but because their liberty is a mirror to another's confinement. When you stop playing the game, you disturb the quiet surface of the game. And yet, it is in this very friction that the dance of transformation begins. The solitude that once felt like a void begins to feel like a spacious calm. The silence, which once seemed to echo with emptiness, now hums with a quiet music. And the absence of company becomes a clearing, a sacred space where something new can finally breathe. Authenticity. For you see, It is only when the mask is set aside that true resonance may find you. When a person of deep awareness ceases to bend and sway to fit the shape of the world, they begin to draw in those rare souls who recognize them without the need for a performance. Society may label them as solitary wanderers, but in truth, they are profoundly connected, not by the number of threads, but by the depth of the weave. So you see, this journey into solitude is not a sentence, but a clearing of the waters. You are being emptied of illusions so that you may be filled with what is real. And in this gentle emptying, every false reflection, every shallow current, every ghost of belonging must simply dissolve. Only then does the soul awaken to the understanding that an absence of companions is not an absence of love. It is an absence of pretense. It means that every connection which endures, even if it is but a single thread, is woven from truth. When one has journeyed long in this quiet landscape, a curious transformation begins to unfold. The silence, which once felt like a distant shore, becomes the very heart of home. The aloneness that once seemed a heavy cloak begins to reveal itself as a luminous gift, a secret and wonderful garden flourishing within the quiet of your being. You begin to perceive that you were never truly alone. You are in the midst of life itself. Every leaf on the tree shimmers with a silent intelligence. Every passing breeze carries a murmur of the timeless. The problem, you see, was never an absence of others. The problem was simply a way of seeing. But the awakened mind begins to look, not with the narrow eyes of the ego, but with the boundless gaze of awareness. And through this new way of seeing, a quiet miracle unfolds. The rigid line between the self and the other begins to soften, to dissolve. The world, which once appeared filled with strangers, now appears as a marvelous reflection of your own consciousness. You find yourself connected, not to the masks of personality, but to the quiet presence behind them. Not to the chatter of words, but to the stillness of being. You see, the common game is to seek others to fill an inner void, to patch together a sense of completeness. But the wise one comes to see that this void is itself an illusion. There is no hole in your being to be filled. There is only the dream that you were ever incomplete. Loneliness is a dream the mind tells itself. The soul, in its vastness, has never known it. To see this is to awaken. And for the first time, love begins to flow from you, not as a request, but as the sun radiates light. You learn to listen as the silent earth listens to the rain, and you begin to give, not as a calculated exchange, but as a river overflows its banks. And then, quite gently, the universe mirrors the gesture back to you. You begin to meet others, not a crowd, but a few in whose eyes you recognize the same deep water. You know them in an instant, not by the shape of their ideas, but because their silence resonates with your own. It is as if two waves on the ocean's surface remember they are the one sea. This is the nature of true communion, a meeting of pure awareness, not a transaction between personalities, nor a social arrangement, but of being itself. And the beautiful, playful irony is that this connection finds you only when you have stopped seeking it. For when you no longer feel like a fragment in need of another piece to be whole, you begin to resonate with those who have discovered their own completeness. Now, this depth of connection often startles the conditioned mind, for it asks for a nakedness not of the body, but of the spirit. It requires you to appear without your masks, without your story. And the truly aware person has learned in their solitude that most cannot bear this degree of reality. They have become attached to their roles, the friend, the lover, the victim, the hero, any costume to avoid the raw, boundless truth of being. And so, the wise do not ask to be understood. There is simply a watching, a gentle observation, a quiet smile, and an allowing for people to drift in and out like the morning mist. One realizes that nothing needs to be held, for nothing that is real can ever be lost. And when you feel that in your bones, the desperate need to cling to another simply dissolves. You let them flow freely because you yourself have become the flow. This freedom is the true gift of a clear mind. It unburdens you from the compulsion to fit in. It releases you from the ache of measuring yourself against others, the hunger for applause, the need to be seen, for you realize that what you are is the very seeing which was never hidden. But this does not imply a permanent retreat from the world. Oh no, not at all. Rather, one begins to dance again, but with a different rhythm. You re-enter the world not as one who is looking for something, but as one who is an offering. The silence has made you ripe. You are no longer a vessel seeking to be filled by others. You have become the fountain from which meaning flows. And here, you see, the dance takes a most curious turn. For once you have found the universe within your own silence, you discover a love that does not grasp. Not a love born of need, but a love that sets all things free. You begin to love the world as the sun embraces the earth, warming all things without demanding to be warmed. And so the one who sees, though their circle may seem small to others, begins to feel the rhythm of the whole. They see their own reflection in every passing face, in the dance of struggle, the music of laughter, and the quiet river of tears. They begin to see that friendship, in its deepest sense, is not a thing to be found, but a state of being to inhabit. When you cease asking for love, you become its source. When you release the need for mirrors, you become a clear pool in which others may see their own true face. And this, you see, is the great secret of solitude. It is not an escape from the world, but a way of returning to it, fully awake. The one who understands now walks in the marketplace once more. But the noise of the crowd is now just sound. It no longer muddies the water. They listen, but are not swept away. They love, but without attachment. They offer a hand, but without imposing a direction, because they have learned that the moment you try to grasp the river, your hand is empty. But the moment you let it flow, it is always with you. So, yes, it may appear that the thoughtful person walks a path with few companions, but those they walk with are true, and beyond them, they are in communion with existence itself. The whisper of the wind, the silent gaze of the stars, the deep hum of being. These become their constant friends. They have exchanged the echo of the crowd for the stillness of their own center, finding a belonging far deeper than mere applause. And here we find a wonderful paradox, you see, that this kind of awareness first appears to lead you away from the world, only to return you to it with a heart wide enough to hold it all. A heart that does not seek to judge, nor to fix, but simply to see. To see the beautiful, tangled dance of their confusion, their earnest striving, and their inherent grace. And this very act of seeing, that in itself is love. For when one has journeyed through the quiet valley of solitude, navigated the shadows of being misunderstood, and emerged into the clear light of awareness, a most extraordinary thing occurs. The question, why, simply dissolves. There is no longer a need to question the number of friends or the world's seeming lack of understanding, because a much deeper realization has dawned. That this whole cosmic play was never a problem to be solved by the mind, but a dance to be felt with one's entire being. And in that knowing, solitude is no longer a problem. It simply becomes part of the music. The universe breathes, an in-breath and an out-breath of existence. There is the deep quiet of stillness and the flowing dance of connection. Both are sacred, both are whole. One is not more profound than the other, just as the mountain is not separate from the valley that defines it. The awakened mind begins to see life not as a struggle, but as a kind of music, a dance, a marvelous interplay of opposites, of profound aloneness and of shared being, of expression and of silence, of movement and deep rest. And in this seeing, the fight with reality ceases. One learns to flow with the great river, and when alone, one is not empty, but full. One is listening to the heartbeat of the cosmos, and when with others, one is not lost in the crowd, but sharing from the wellspring of their being. The chase for company ends, as does the flight from it. There is simply an allowing of what comes and a graceful release of what goes, because of the deep knowing that nothing essential can be lost and no illusion can truly remain. This is the quiet wisdom that emerges when intelligence is ripened in the space of solitude. It is never about feeling above anyone. It is about seeing through the grand illusion of our separateness. The person of insight understands that even the deepest friendship, like all things, is a wave in the ocean of time. People flow into your life like streams meeting a river, some for a moment, some for a season, but all are part of the great pattern, and when their current diverges, the wise heart lets go with a sense of gratitude for the music they made together, not with the sorrow of its ending. This is the source of that calm, that peaceful detachment you see in them. It is not that they do not feel, but that they have stopped trying to grasp the water in their hands. They have seen that attachment is not love, and that dependence is not true connection. Love is a letting go. Attachment is a clenching, a holding on. And all holding on is simply fear, masquerading as care. The wise one loves without the need to own. They walk through this world with a light step, and in their presence others feel a little more free. Their company does not bind you, it invites you to be. And that, you see, is the most beautiful offering of all. Now you may wonder, does such a person ever feel lonely? But of course. They are, after all, a wave in this human ocean. The difference is, loneliness is no longer a terrifying ghost. They treat it as a familiar guest who sometimes comes to call, and when that guest appears, they open the door and invite it in, for they have come to understand its message. That loneliness is not the absence of another. It is the longing to return to yourself. And when you finally welcome your own presence, without judgment, without story, without the need to run, you are finally home. That yearning simply dissolves. You realize the one you were seeking has been here all along. And so, whether you dance with one friend, or none, or 1,000, the number ceases to matter, for you are already complete. You see, the great secret is this. Solitude is not a void to be filled. It is an intimacy with the fabric of life. When one stops running from the ocean of their own being, they discover that they are not a wave separate from the sea. Every leaf, every echo, every passing glance is a note in the same cosmic melody. And you are the silence in which it all unfolds. This is why the wise one is not against society. They are simply beyond its game. They engage with the world as a dance, not as a battle. They can laugh with the crowd without losing their center, and listen to the wise without clinging to their words. They are at home everywhere and nowhere, for their true home is the present moment. And here we find the final beautiful paradox. The moment you no longer need another, you become a friend to all that is. You cease drawing lines in the sand between mine and theirs, between me and you. You see every soul as a fellow traveler on the same winding, mysterious river, each one carrying their own secret hopes and hidden sorrows. You see that all are seeking, in their own way, to be at peace, and from this deep seeing, compassion is born. It is not the feeling of pity, nor is it superiority, but a quiet, spacious understanding. Forgiveness begins to flow more easily, laughter arises more freely, and love becomes a silent presence. You cease to be a person seeking friends, and become a space through which friendship breathes. So if you find yourself in stillness, do not rush to fill it. Do not cover the silence with noise or the space with distraction. Simply sit with it. Listen. Because somewhere within that quietude, you will hear the subtle music of your own being whispering. You were never abandoned. You were only learning to come home to yourself. And that, you see, is the beginning of true companionship. Not with another person, not with the world, but with existence itself. For when you befriend the present moment, life itself becomes your friend. And then, whether you are in the company of many or walking alone under the vast, silent stars, you will know, without a doubt, that you are home.